Hey, it's John from Tinderbox Arts. I'm going to do a clutch job today on my 2010 Triumph Bonneville. And I'm just showing you here some of the things that I've gathered. The biggest pain in the ass, honestly, was getting this gasket. It took me almost a month. So this is the clutch cover gasket. And I don't know why it took so long to get, but that's what happened. And I have a couple seals from Triumph as well. So we have that. The clutch kit itself is Mark Barnett. And the model is 303-75-10004, complete Kevlar clutch kit. So this kit comes with the plates as well as the the clutch lining and all that. I need to soak that in oil. It does come with springs, but I've been advised by people on Triumph forums that these green springs, also sold by Barnett, are a better option because of the strength of the springs. We'll get into that in a minute. And of course, I got oil and a filter. Now, some people tilt the bike way over and try to save the oil, so they go through all sorts of hassle to do that. And for me, I'm just not that cheap. I am cheap, but not that cheap. So I'm just going to get new oil. Now, why am I replacing this clutch? Well, the bike doesn't actually have that many miles on it. It's only 16,800 miles, which is not that much. And, typically the clutch should last longer than that. But what I've noticed is that there is wear on the clutch because now the friction zone is way out. So the friction zone is like, ½ inch in, maybe like that. It's just ridiculous. So you can really hardly ride the thing anymore because the friction zone is so far out. And there's no adjustment to be made. I mean, the clutch is adjusted, the cable, I should say, is adjusted correctly. So the theory is that the clutch is worn, and one thing I've noticed on a lot of the forums is there are claims that the Triumph clutch springs are too weak from the factory. So especially if you added a little bit more horsepower. I haven't added a lot, but I do have an aftermarket exhaust and some other modifications I made to the emissions, which may add a few horsepower. But the idea is, the theory is that the springs in the clutch are marginal to begin with, and when you romp on it in fifth gear or something like that, or you add a little bit more horsepower, what tends to happen is you'll get just a minute amount of slipping when you're riding along. It's not enough that the RPMs will shoot up, but enough so you'll get a little extra wear on the clutch. And over time, that wear builds up and eventually you run out of clutch. So that's the theory. We're going to test that. I don't really know if it's true or not, but I do know that it's getting to the point where it's not really rideable anymore. Before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to do this. I'm taking some oil, clean oil, and I want to get this clutch soaked in oil so that these I'm just taking a brush here so that we get these clutch linings soaked in oil. And according to the directions, you actually only have to do this a few minutes in advance, but it's not a bad idea to make sure they're all well coated. All right, before I get too far into this, I want to measure one thing. This is where the clutch cable comes in. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. Where the clutch cable comes in, this obviously has to be removed before I remove the clutch cover. But I want to measure, this isn't strictly necessary, but I want to measure where this adjustment nut is relative to something solid. So I'm going to choose the end of the threads there. And I've got from the nut to the end of the threads, it's 7.5 millimeters. I'm just curious, when I put the new clutch in, how different that's going to be. Here's an extreme close-up of the shifter lever. And I just want to point out before I take this off, see that little tiny dot there on the spline shaft? That dot aligns with the opening here on the shift lever. So if you have trouble getting that back on, that's how you know it's aligned. All right, just to, for posterity's sake, I guess, there's 17 clutch cover bolts, right? What I did, just to remember which ones are which, is to start with the first of this cable guide here, right? I started on the right side. So that is this one right here, okay? So starting there, if you count, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 long ones. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 long ones. And the first short one is way down here. So basically all the bottom are the short ones. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 5 more of the long ones. So that's how I'm going to remember this. I suppose you could probably figure it out, but it would be confusing later if you didn't. So starting with this, I work my way counterclockwise just to remember which is which. All right, that should be it. Now I'm just going to get this gasket loose using a rubber mallet. There it goes. I can hear it crack. Let's see if I'm there yet. Not quite. Almost. There it is. A little bit of oil drip on the end here. I did drain the oil, of course, already. And there's the rest of the oil. So I'm just going to let that oil drain out. Not too bad, but a little residual. And then we'll pull the cover the rest of the way off. I don't know if I'm ready there. Got a little bit of gasket stick still. There it comes. It's tenacious, that's for sure. There. I think that's sealed by the shift lever was holding me up here. There it goes. All right. All right, I just took the cover off and cleaned some of the oil off my hands so I can hold the camera. So I didn't expect to see anything catastrophic in here, of course. I mean, the clutch is still working. But we'll just take a look while I got the innards exposed here, what's going on. So over here, right here, is this wavy washer, which is easy to lose. So you want to make sure you put that somewhere safe or leave it there or whatever you're going to do, but don't lose it. And then just for future use, this, I think they call it the push rod. This should move freely in and out. So, you know, I could just easily move it with 2 fingers. And when I put this back together with the new springs and everything, there is a special tool that Triumph sells to help align everything so that this continues to be easy to move in and out. Or you can do it the hard way, which is the way I'm going to do it, which is to tighten these very slowly in a cross pattern so that this stays loose. If this binds or is tight, then you've done it wrong. You need to back off and start again. So either buy the tool, which is 60 or 80 bucks, I think, or you know, do it the hard way and just be careful about how you tighten everything. So there's that. The gasket, which some people complain about, doesn't look too bad for me. I mean, yeah, there's some spots where I got to clean it up, but nothing terrible, honestly. I mean, there's just a few spots like this one probably. Whatever. I don't think that's all that awful. Everything else looks pretty good. I don't see anything unusual or whatever. So, next thing, the clutch pack, of course, is in here. Let me get on top of that. Is in here. And you can see some of it there. And the springs in question are in here. We're going to loosen these bolts, take this push rod out, and take those springs out. Then there's a big nut to undo, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So that's where we are. Looking at this. Looks all right. The shift rod looks all right. A little bit worn there, but whoops, sorry. A little bit worn there, but not too bad. And I'm looking at some of the dowel pins, just making sure I see where everything goes when it goes back together. There's still a little bit of oil dripping out, so I'll let that drip a little bit, get that out of my way. Okay, once again, I'm just going to take this push rod and just get a feel for how easy it is to move in and out, so I know when I put it back together what to do. And then when I'm ready, I'm just going to remove that, pull that out. Put that somewhere safe over here. Okay. And then we're going to loosen these bolts here, which shouldn't be that tight. We want to do it in a crisscross pattern so that the spring pressure is loosened gradually. And that's why this is going to be so tough, because when I put this back together, if I'm slightly cocked, then this thing isn't going to, the push rod isn't going to sit there smoothly. So I just got to be careful putting it back together. All right, I've loosened all these bolts, and I can see how this is going to be a pain getting this back together, but I think they're all loose now. All right, so I'll pull this out, trying to keep all the springs and everything together. All right, so there's the 4 springs. We'll measure those and take a look at them shortly, but let me just put this aside over here in my little parts area. And now, let's see, you on camera? Yeah. So right here is this bolt that we need to get off, or nut, I should say, to get off to take the clutch pack out. And to do that, the trouble is if I try to turn this, it's on there quite tight, I think 77 foot-pounds. So if I try to turn that, you know, the engine's going to turn over. So the plan is, whether this works or not, we'll find out, is to put the trans in 5th gear. And then I don't have a helper to put the rear brake on. So what I'm going to try to do is just put like a broomstick between the spokes of the wheel, and then have that broomstick hit the shocks. I'll show you in a second. And I hope that'll be enough to hold the wheel in place while I loosen this up. But never tried it before, so we'll have to find out. The alternative is, you see these little fins right here. You can either buy a tool that fits into those fins and then holds this whole thing steady, or you can make one, which is another possibility for me, but I'm going to try this other method first and we'll see what happens. All right, so I got my socket on the, it's a 30mm nut, and so here's my breaker bar, right? And then all I did was stick a, oh man, sorry, my sound cord is stuck here. I got a broomstick in between the spokes of the wheel, and they'll hit the, over here, they'll hit the shock. So if I'm just moving the, you can see the wheel moving, and that's because I'm doing this. All right, so that's the idea, because I don't have a helper. So I'm just going to whale on this and see what happens. I don't know if I have a place for that. Let me set the camera down. Of course, the danger is I don't have anyone sitting on the bike for some extra weight, so I could, I guess, tip the bike over if I'm not careful here. But let's see how this works. All right, that's set. Oh boy, there it is on there. There it goes. Wow, that worked like a champ. Really no problem at all. So there's a little bit of flex in it, so when I put this screw back on and I'm trying to get the right torque value, that could be a little tricky. But otherwise it worked pretty good. All right, boy, I really need to invest in a wireless microphone. This gets annoying. So I have the nut off now. I just unscrewed it, and then this whole, oh, lost my washer there. This has an in and an out, this washer, and it says right on it, out. So if you screw that up, all right, get back to this. Trying to get all the clutch pack as one if I can, which is a little tricky. Oh, I lost one of the, I lost one plate in the back there. Oh no, I didn't. I got it all. Okay, so that's the backing. Here's the clutch pack, and it all looks pretty good so far. I don't see anything unusual that would freak me out. So let me go over to a bench somewhere and we'll take a hard look at this. All right, let me adjust the camera a little bit here. So this is my first look too on the clutch pack. We want to see what's going on here. So of course it's all stuck together with the oil there. All right, so that looks fine. I don't see any problems there. No bluing, no overheating. I mean, a slight amount of wear. Sorry, there you are. Slight amount of wear, but nothing at all unusual. Clutches look pretty good. I don't see anything particularly worn there. Looks all right. So I'm just going to go through these in order here. No bluing or anything there. Notice the dimples. Slightly uneven wear, but that's really just the plate itself. So these look pretty good so far. All right, when I put these two clutch packs side by side standing up and I measured them, you know, just for height, I did find that the new Barnett clutch is about 1 millimeter taller, which is good. That's what I would expect and that's what I would want. So that helps, you know, confirm the theory, or at least leans towards the theory that this clutch pack is just worn. It's not that there's anything seriously wrong, it's just that it's worn. So as this material gives away a little bit, everything gets just a little bit shorter. And this clutch pack is being taller, that's good. So far, I'm on the right track, I guess. The other thing I got to figure out, I got to look this up. You'll notice, see, this is the new clutch pack now. So see the size of the material on that ring versus the size on this ring. This ring is much bigger. There's only one ring difference. I just got to make sure I put that in the right place. So I got to take a look at that. But other than that, so far I'm pleasantly surprised and optimistic. I just want to make sure that I was on the right track, and it seems so far that I was. We'll find out when it gets all put back together. Now, the next thing I want to do is measure those springs and just see where we are as far as the height of those. All right, I have the 3 sets of springs that I'm potentially looking at here. These are the originals right here. All right, this is the 4 that came with the clutch kit that I bought from Barnett, and these are the green ones that I bought from Barnett separately. The part number on that is, where are you here? 501-82-06023. All right, so this is a little interesting. Here are the original ones we're looking at now. Sorry about the camera shake. If I put a straight edge across them, I can't really show you that on camera very easily, but because I only have one hand. But one of them is a little, one of them is a little shorter than the other. So this one on the end here is a millimeter, or at least 3/4 of a millimeter, maybe a millimeter shorter than the other ones. All right. So that shows that that spring has weakened, and you know that's not good. Now this set here that came from Barnett in the kit, I put a straight edge across them, it's dead flat. All right. Same with the other new ones here. I put a straight edge across it, they're dead flat. They're all perfect. So that does show that the original springs developed, or at least one of them developed a problem, because they should all be the exact same height. So that gives me a little confidence that I'm on the right track as well. Now, the question now is, do I want to use the green springs that I bought or the ones that came in the kit? Interestingly enough, the ones that come in the kit are much taller, you can see that, than the original ones. Spring size, in other words, the size of the actual wire is similar. So plausibly they have a little more grip than the originals. But anyway, and then the green ones, let me put those side by side. If you put that side by side with the old ones, they're ever so slightly taller, but much closer. And the spring size, actually it's not that far off. But, you know, I can't tell with my equipment which one's a stronger spring. Everyone online tends to use these green ones and be happy with them. So I'm probably going to go that route. If nothing else, these look like a pain because they're taller. But actually, you know what? If I push it down with my thumb, just that much, they seem pretty equal. And these greens, sorry, the camera's out of focus. This green does seem a little stiffer. So I think these greens are definitely stiffer. And they start out at a similar height as the original. So I'm inclined to use these green ones as everyone else has online. I'm not sure why Barnett chose to include these, but the fact that they're longer means that they're under more pressure, you know, once they're secured down. So maybe that makes enough of a difference in Barnett's mind and the engineers there. But I'm inclined to go with these green ones, so I think that's what I'm going to do. All right, in determining, this is the different clutch ring, and I don't really have an expert to turn to at the moment. It's a Memorial Day weekend, and nobody's going to be answering the phone now. So I'm relying on the advice of a stranger online to say that this different one goes on closest to the engine on the inside. Now the Triumph clutch pack, when I looked more closely, actually has 2 different ones. One on the outside, in other words, one on the inside, one on the very outside. And so this one just has a single. You know, how much difference it makes, I don't really know, but I'm going to put this on the inside closest to the engine. So I'll get the rest of this buttoned up, and then we start putting this thing back together. All right, got the clutch pack back in there. You know, I want to mention one thing real quick. I wish I had a pointer, but I don't. But the base of where these springs will sit, there are little washers, And it'd be real easy to lose those. So just make sure you have 4 washers there, you know, 1 for each post at the bottom there when you put this back in, so you don't lose it. But now we're gonna have the washer for the big nut here. It actually says out right on it, so that goes out. And then this nut has like a little ridge on one side that goes out. And I still have my broomstick in the wheel, so let's see if this this works. It's kind of weird. I am a little fearing a little bit of flex. So when I'm trying to set the torque, which I believe is 77 foot-pounds, so let's just see what happens. So far, so good. Now it's starting to get hard, though. Well, not thrilled with it, but it's working, I guess. Boy. All right, it is going to work, but I got to move the camera because I got to get a different purchase on this, but it is going to work. All right, I'm just putting the springs in here. And again, make sure you have those washers, 1 on each post. And I'm just putting the springs on here. And this is going to be a little bit of a pain, I believe. So it is what it is. If you're not going to buy the tool, this is the chance you're taking. So I got to put a little bit of pressure on it, even just to get the screws started. I had to take it off camera to get that big nut, only because I needed to push down rather than pull up, and the camera was in the way, but otherwise it was good. All right, so those are all started. So I'm just gonna, my hand here, try to get this as straight as I can to get started. That's about it right there. And then this little push rod thing here, which I am gonna grease up with a little bit of oil. So I want this to go in and out smoothly when it gets to the point. We're not quite there yet, but. And where do I put my socket? Here's part of it. Where's the rest of it? And this is the way this usually goes at this point. I start losing things. All right, found the socket. So I'm just gonna tighten this. You can just do it by hand at first. And then it's a little early yet, but I'll just keep checking to see if this post is smooth going in and out. And then now it's starting to crank down a little bit, so I'll just do, as long as it's going in and out smoothly, I'm in good shape. So far, so good. And I'm just doing a crosshatch pattern here. You can kind of see how it goes and feel it a little bit too. All right, well, I probably got another 5 or 10 minutes of doing this, so I'm not going to put that on camera. But all right, that took me considerably more than 20 minutes. It's probably more like 45 minutes. It's a pain in the ass. As you're tightening this, you know, it just tends to bind on you, and then you have to back off a little bit. I finally wised up, and instead of using a socket wrench, so if you use a socket wrench, you know, you have to flip this back and forth every time you want to loosen or tighten, which gets to be a pain. So I finally wised up and used a socket driver, and that way you can go back and forth as you need to. You start to feel a bind, you back it up, whatever. So I did that for a while and finally got it real close, like within a thread, and then there was another 10 minutes just to get the final tightening. So that's all tight now, and we're good to go here. I previously scraped this gasket off. It really wasn't too bad. Now, I'm trying to move you over to the cover. So the cover, what I want to do, there's 2 seals I want to replace. This one here and this one here, right? Because those are getting hard and they're going to start leaking, but also scoring the shaft. So here's the shift lever, I guess I call it. And actually, you can start to see where that may score already. So we'll grease that up. Here's a little spring that goes on the end of it. And here's the push rod on the inside. So that's all out for now, so I can get the seal out, and then I'll put that back in and put this seal in, and we'll be good to go. I'll check the bearings, but they seem fine. So I'll get all that done, the little seals replaced, you just pry them out with a screwdriver. And grease everything up, and then we'll be ready to put it back together. All right, a couple housekeeping notes. I got the old seals out and the new seals in. I just pry them out with a screwdriver. You push them in with your thumb. I'll try to get you the part numbers here. I don't know which is which, actually. This says it's a dust seal T36000. Can't read the rest. 55 maybe? I don't know. There's your other numbers. Hopefully that means something. Oh, here it is. 3600095. And then, sorry, this one, boy. The 88 and the 95 on the end are the difference. So those are the two dust seals. The shaft for the shift lever right there is spring loaded. So you can just pull the shaft out, and the spring will slide out if you just kind of turn the whole thing upside down, and then you can get that out and grease up the shaft when you put it back in so that the seal is ready to go. And then make sure you have this little push rod there. So that's basically it. Now I'm just going to clean up with some brake cleaner or acetone or something like that the edges here to get the oil off. I am going to use a little bit of silicone, not a whole bunch, just a very, very light coating just to hold the gasket on and also to give it a little more sealing power. So I'm going to do that, and basically that's the last of the major stuff here. All right, see if I can get this thing on without screwing anything up. There are dowels which help align. Just got to be careful about the gasket though. There. One more. Where's my other one? There. I want to look. I'm going to get a flashlight, I think, but I think we're all lined up here. All right, before I torque these down to spec, I got 17 in there. I just want to make sure everything is buttoned up right. We got this going. It starts to hit right there, which looks about right. Sorry, off camera there. Looks about right there. Boy, there's some, oh, that's just grease. So that feels good. I ended up I painted this just because I think it looks better. And this looks like it's in good. I haven't put the lever on yet, but that will be the next. So it all looks good. So I'm going to torque all these 17 bolts down to spec, which I believe is also, I think it's 9 Newton meters, I want to say. I got to double check that. And then I'll clean the oil off of this and just make sure everything's nicey nice. Then before I put the oil back in, I want to let that silicone set up so that nothing breaks free and goes into the engine. So I'll let that set up, maybe have something to eat, come back, put some oil in it, and then we'll see what happens. All right, final thoughts. Everything's back together, oil's in. And you saw there, I just had a chance to try it. I haven't gone for a ride yet. It's the weather's not cooperating with me, but I'll do that tomorrow. But basically, I can already tell that it's much, much better. So the where the clutch was grabbing before, the friction zone, before I did this was like right there, just barely. It was almost totally out. Now it's more like out here. It feels like it did originally when I got the bike. I didn't get the bike new. I got it with about 1,500 miles on it. But it feels back to where it was then. The clutch, how much hand pressure you need or force you need to pull the clutch is a little bit more than it was. I don't find it bothersome. But, if you were marginal before, you might find it bothersome. But for me, it's fine. The cable and everything went back together. One interesting thing, you remember before in the beginning of the video, I measured this space here and it was about 7.5 millimeters. Now it's 14. So there's definitely a difference there too. I'm very pleased so far. Now, again, I haven't gone for a ride, but I don't see any reason why my perception is going to change here. The seals I will mention that I replaced. So I replaced the seal in this shaft and the one under here. They were definitely old and hard and probably weren't going to last very much longer. So definitely take the time to replace those. I don't know, that's about it. I painted this, as I said, just because I think it looks better. And I probably would have painted this, but I don't think it would last, so I didn't bother. So overall, I'm very pleased, and I'm kind of still surprised. I guess it basically was, as the theory put it, in that the spring pressure was just marginal, and you know, it was just slipping here and there. I probably didn't even really notice it most of the time, and the clutch was getting older as well, and the combination of the two, it just basically wore out. It was not slipping. I mean, it was still working, but it was getting to the point where the friction zone itself was very thin, so it basically was just getting grabby at the very end, and I just couldn't ride like that. So anyway, I'm pleased with the Barnett Performance clutch, and the job wasn't too bad. So if you want to try this yourself, have at it.